Bath wear Edinburgh down to book their place in the Challenge Cup final. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Bath started this game with an extended period of possession. Edinburgh managed to turn them over, to go from their own 22. The ball goes loose. Ali Price, he gets to it first, kicks it on. Then there's a race between him and Russell to get to the ball as it's getting close to the try line. He shins it though as he's trying to kick it on again. He thinks the ball's going to go out, so he just stops running after it, but the ball takes a weird bounce, comes back, towards in play behind the try line. But by that time, Russell has beaten him to the ball to dot it down. We then have a Timo check for high tackle by Cameron Redpath on Hamish Watson, but it's on the chest, so it's play on. Sam Underhill then playing the 9, penalty to Edinburgh, pretty straightforward, but Thompson slams it off the outside of the upright. Jamie Ritchie then drops a restart to give Bath a scrum in a decent position, and then Bath win a penalty from that scrum. And you just feel Edinburgh, they need to take a collective deep breath. There seems to be a lot of nerves on their side early on. Bath then up the line from the penalty. Dunn and Underhill with strong carries to get them close to the line. Then Underhill goes over to score thanks to a nice offload from Ewells. Russell's hits the post with the conversion, but actually goes in off the inside of it, and it's 7-0. Russell then throws an intercept pass to Curry, but Russell gets back to him to tackle him. Will Muirs kicks the ball out of his hands, so he goes to the bin for 10 minutes. Edinburgh with a numerical advantage, but it's still, for most of that period, it's still, mostly Bath. Patterson, at this stage as well, we find that he went for an HIA in like the 2nd or 3rd minute. We find he's failed it and he won't return. So his replacement, Mosesi to Pilotu, stays on. So, Edinburgh having to reshuffle the backline a little bit in the first couple of minutes. Russell then tries a drop goal, but it falls short. But Bath really are running that yellow card period down. Edinburgh kick long downfield. Russell kicks that clear, and Bath just switch off. They think, going to set up the line out. You can see Russell taking his gum shield out, but the ball actually hits the top of the stand, comes back down. Curry takes the throw quickly, and then Bath just caught absolutely napping. He plays a 1-2, and then he puts Pilotu over to score. It's converted by Thompson for 7 points all. Bath then work the ball into the 22. They're keeping it tight with the forwards carrying close to the ruck. Edinburgh get over the ball to win a penalty. Danger is averted, and Will Muirs returns from the sin bin. At that point, Bath then win a line out against the head, and they spread it right to left quickly. Muir going for a line, but forced into touch. Decent defence on the edge there by Edinburgh, but Edinburgh then not straighten the line out. And it's been a real problem for them. And it was a problem from the whole game. Really poor line out from them. And, they had a lot of problems in terms of getting in positions, etc. And the fact that when they did get into positions that the line out wasn't working really was against them. Bath then win a penalty at the scrum. They go for another scrum. And then they go off the back. They're stopped just short. And, to go at the line a few times, they're held out, but then Abano goes for it, gets turned on his back. Bath get the ball out, but then they knock it on. So some great defence from Edinburgh there, but then Edinburgh, they try and run it off the back of the scrum, obviously trying to get some distance to be able to get a kick, but Underhill gets over the ball, wins a penalty, back to the corner. They set up the maul, and then Dunn gets over to score. Conversions missed, 12-7. Then Dunn, he's not rolling away. Edinburgh penalty up the line. They work it close to the line. Bath are offside. They've got another penalty, but then we have a round of handbags before we resume. Guy Pepper started the whole thing. So there's an easier penalty to Edinburgh now, and Thompson makes it 12 points to 10 from the tee, and that is our halftime score. Ali Price with a nice kick into space early in the half. He gets smashed by Underhill just after he's kicked it. Fair enough, he was committed to the tackle, but it really was a stinger on the ribs for Price. Kokenik-Singa, he collects the ball, but then kind of does that thing where, stutter step and gets a toe on the line. And we got a line out to Edinburgh just outside the 22. They maul it into the 22 before spreading it. Then they move it out to right, where they've definitely got numbers. You have a TMO check for a deliberate knock-on by Tom de Glanville. Darcy Graham, the pass that had gone to him, he was absolutely in for a try. There was no cover back there. So de Glanville to the bin, penalty try, and it's 17 points to 12. Edinburgh leading, and they've got a man advantage again. Bath, though, again they're just dominating possession. They work the ball close to the line, forcing penalties. They go for tap, another penalty. Edinburgh get a warning for the number of penalties close to the line. They tap again, battering away at the line. Edinburgh keeping them out, but eventually Abano drives over. We have a TMO check to see if he's held up or not. On-field decision is try, so remember that, because it was a bit weird how things happened then. So it looks like, from the initial pictures, that Ali Price has gotten his arm under the ball to initially hold the ball up, but then you can't see what's happened after that, right? Whether the ball has gotten down or it's been held up, right? And they only seem to have one camera angle. Cameras actually were very poor in this game. I don't know why, but we didn't have like multiple angles the way we normally would. But I'm thinking, okay, there's only one angle. Yes, in the spirit, you may think maybe he has held it up, but you can't be sure. And it's supposed to be clear and obvious to overturn the on-field decision. But then referee says, no, it looks like it's been held up, so no try. So a bit of a weird one there. Then after all that, relieving that pressure, just after, Sam Skinner infringes and he goes to the bin, back into the corner. Then they bring on most of their bench at the same time, just to kind of give them that oomph towards the end. They maul it within a few meters, but then Watson gets over the ball to win a penalty. Edinburgh defending brilliantly, but thinking at this stage, they have to offer something down the other end, because they're not going to win this game by just being sat on their own line defending the whole time. Like, it's brave stuff, but you have to have some kind of relief, some kind of valve to get rid of that pressure, get up the other end, and it's not happening for them. Bath then to the corner from scrum penalty. They're back to 15 now. They catch it and then they drive over. Very clean from them. Done with a second try. Conversion puts Bath back into the lead, 19 points to 17. Underhill then gets over the ball yet again. He had a brilliant game. Bath to the corner. One more push from them, and then they get a penalty. Number of recycles on the line, and then Barbary goes over in the corner. Conversions missed, 24 points to 17, but you can see that they're beginning to stretch away now. Then they win a scrum penalty in the 22. Russell makes it a 2-score game, 27 points to 17. Edinburgh then get themselves upfield finally. Thompson, he makes a break. He's got Price in support, finds him. He gets over. Russell manages to actually turn him on his back, but Price gets the ball down to score, convert for 27 points to 24. Edinburgh, they're staying in the game, but it's always been kind of in the second half responding to Bath, and they've never been in a position where there's only one score in it and they're pushing for a score. Then have kind of a hectic period where it's back and forth a little bit. You see there's tired legs on both teams, and nice little kick in behind from Russell. Edinburgh, they let it bounce. There's a few of these kind of, player gets it, tries to, step somebody, then passes somebody else. They try carrying it, and eventually, they get caught and they get isolated. Penalty to Bath at that stage. And then Bath, they've got that line under siege yet again. They win another penalty and they tap, and few more recycles, and a net drives over next to the post. That's converted then for 34 points to 24, and not much left in the game. You're expecting that should be the game done unless there's some kind of miracle from Edinburgh. And then Muir breaks on the left, smashes through the tackle of Darcy Graham, then offloads to Pepper to seal that win. Conversion missed. Edinburgh then, from the restart, they think they've scored, but there's a knock-on from Darcy Graham in the build-up, so the full-time score is 39 points to 24. Bath deserved winners and finalists from this game. So let's have a look at the stats, and then we'll have a quick chat about each of the teams. So let me pull them up here. So first of all, the tries, 3 tries for Edinburgh and 6 for Bath. And, really, I think the final score showed more the balance between the teams than most of the way through. I thought Bath were, for much of the game, much the better of the two teams. And, Edinburgh were kind of clinging on a little bit. Meters made then, 327 to 340. But, number carries 73 for Edinburgh and 159 for Bath. So you can see, Edinburgh were kind of, their meters are coming from breaks, whereas Bath, a lot of their meters were just forwards carrying, committing the defenders, and then looking for that space out wide. Clean breaks 8-6 in favour of Edinburgh, and 15 defenders beaten to 13 for Edinburgh. So when they had ball and they found space, they did exploit it, just didn't do enough of it really in the game. Offloads then 9-10, passes 82 to 124. So again, you can see Edinburgh holding on to that ball a lot, and you can see it here, possession stats: 32% for Edinburgh, 68 for Bath, and then territory just 25% for Edinburgh, 75 for Bath. Talk about one-sided. And then onto defence. Tackles made, 210 tackles for Edinburgh, just 70 for Bath. So Edinburgh having to make 3 times as many tackles. But in fairness, they did it pretty well. 87% success is really good at this level. 71% for Bath. The problem for Edinburgh was that, even if you make 87%, when you're having to make 210 tackles, that's, it's still too many. You're going to concede chances, and they did. Turnovers won then 9-10. Onto set piece. So lineouts, 10 lineouts won for Edinburgh, 13 for Bath. But, Edinburgh 77% in the lineout, not good enough. You need to be in the 80s somewhere. Bath at 87, pretty decent. Scrums then, 3 scrums, 1 for Edinburgh, 8 for Bath. So both at 100%. But the thing is, Bath were winning penalties on their put-in. Onto kicking then, kicks from hand, 19 for Edinburgh and 24 for Bath. So, and both teams kind of similar meters, 557 for Edinburgh and 590 for Bath. But I thought in terms of just the overall kicking strategy, Bath had the upper hand again in this one. They knew when to put it in behind, when to find grass, when to put up contestables, whereas Edinburgh, a lot of the time, it was take whatever kick was available just to get the ball away from the line. So, not as much kind of thinking behind their strategy other than get the ball out of here. Retain kicks then, 5 for Edinburgh, 4 for Bath. Onto the breakdown then, Rooks won, 35 for Edinburgh and 111 for Bath. And then Edinburgh losing 3 rucks to nil. Only 84% success at ruck time for them. Not good enough. Again, you need to be in the 90s on that stat. 98% for Bath is excellent. Turnovers 1 in Mauls a ruck. 9 to 10. We already saw those. Maul totals then 2 for Edinburgh and 4 for Bath. 100% Maul success each. Maul meters gained. Again, this stat is wrong because it's basically number of successful mauls, but I don't know why they say meters gained. It's not, because it's 2 for Edinburgh and 4 for Bath. So it's basically 2 successful mauls to 4 successful mauls. So obviously whoever coded the website for the stats has the wrong number actually plugging in there. Onto discipline then. Penalties conceded 16 for Edinburgh. That's way too many, but it was the pressure that Bath were putting on that was causing that. 8 for Bath. Always talk about keeping in single figures and you're doing well, and they did well. 1 yellow card for Edinburgh and 2 for Bath. And crucially, Edinburgh, the yellow card periods, Bath were still on top. Yes, one kind of overlapped, but in those periods where Edinburgh were 15 versus 14, it didn't seem to matter. Bath were still the team that were dominating things. So let's talk about the teams. So start with the home team, Edinburgh. They're going to be disappointed definitely with this, not just with the result, but I think with the performance as well. That they got themselves into a semi-final. They're at home, and yes, a lot of people were predicting that Bath were going to beat them, but they never really fired a shot in terms of this game. Yes, they got scores, but nobody, not even the most one-eyed Edinburgh, most loyal fan, was thinking in those last kind of 10 or 15 minutes that Edinburgh were going to win the game. It was obvious that Bath were just, wearing them down, and eventually the score was going to blow out, and it did. And it's got to be disappointing to have so little territory and possession in a semi-final like that. And, who knows the next time that Edinburgh will actually reach a European semi-final. And, I think that's the part that's going to sting them, because Edinburgh, again, very inconsistent team in terms of their performances. And we talked about this a lot on the channel, whether it's URC or Europe as well. And this was definitely down the lower scale of their kind of performance roller coaster that Edinburgh, treat us and their fans to, all the time. So, yeah, I think, they won't feel like they gave it their best shot in this one. I think even at their best, it would have been a struggle to beat this Bath team, honestly. But, at least they would have come out of it feeling like, okay, we gave it a go. I don't think after this performance, they're going to feel that much. Like, Edinburgh fans, feel free to correct me on that. But I do feel like they didn't show up in this. In terms of defense, certainly they did excellently, to stay in the game and stay close to Bath. But, again, there was no real kind of threat of they might actually win this game. On to Bath then, their forwards, I think, definitely won them this game. Like, hard carries, disrupting the line out, dominating the scrum, the driving maul, such a big force. And a lot of their tries either came through the forwards, like driving at that line directly, or forwards tucking in the defence and then creating space out wide that then Russell was able to, call for and get the ball out to get those scores out wide. So I think Bath did really well in terms of, the way they played the game, the way they managed the yellow card periods. They didn't miss a step, honestly. Some teams, when they concede yellow cards and they go down to 14, they're worried about, let's not concede during this period, and they go into more defensive kind of mindset. And the problem with that is even if you don't concede during the yellow card period, it can then be hard to switch back over when you're back to 15 to try and get back on the front foot because you've lost that momentum. But not with Bath. They kept their momentum all the way through. They were the dominant team through both their yellow card periods. And you just felt like the tries were an inevitability, because it's not just that they got themselves into positions and they had the possession. It was the fact that when they were doing that, they were stretching the Edinburgh defence and they were forcing penalties, which meant that they could try things, and they knew they'd be coming back from the penalty advantage. And that's always a massive, thing for you when you're in attack, is having that penalty advantage. Because if the other team does get in over the ball, and it means doesn't matter, we're resetting with your penalty. There's no massive cheer from the crowd or from the players after a great set of defence. Like, Edinburgh put in some brilliant sets of defence, but so many times it ended, with a bad score anyway. So, that was kind of the way they went through it. Like, the forwards kind of grounded out, and then when they needed to, like, the backs delivered as well. So excellent performance from Bath. And now, they're going to look at going to that final, and they know it's going to be, a French team that are playing, whether it's Lyon or Racing 92 will be decided tomorrow, but they're absolutely, fully deserved of that final berth. Edinburgh, again, probably going to look back on this, once all of this is settled, as kind of an opportunity missed. That, again, not necessarily that they didn't win the game, but more that they didn't perform to a level that we know they're capable of, even though they don't hit that level so often. But I think it should be at least a catalyst for Edinburgh to be thinking about, why are they so inconsistent? And why is there such a gap between the top performances and their poor performance, and why are they so up and down within games as well? And that's a lot of things for them to consider. And a lot of that is to do with, having the right kind of mental things as well. So getting, whether it's coming from coaches or sports psychologists or whoever, it feels like somebody needs to get hold of that squad. The way, with Franco Smith, over there in Glasgow, the way he did it with his team, turning them from, the bridesmaids, finally into the brides, and getting that URC championship. That's the kind of transition I think Edinburgh need to make as well. But decent game of rugby. I would have obviously cheering for Edinburgh, my URC, team. So as I always say, I was going to cheer for URC team against any other league. I don't care what country they're from. I'm not kind of partisan that way, other than if it's two URC teams playing and one of them's from Ireland, then that's different. But again, I think Bath absolutely deserved the win. And yeah, I would have loved Edinburgh to do a bit better, but I don't think, I certainly don't have any complaints about Edinburgh, having lost that. It didn't feel like, it was unjust. I felt like, both teams got what they deserved out of the game.